Well, Mark, Jake, how are you both this evening?
Yeah, we're very good. Lovely to be here tonight at our London premiere of Video
From our
Nasties.
DVD signing at home as well.
Well, we've got the second round of Video Nasties, this time the Draconian Days. I can imagine you had such a wealth of material from the first documentary that really you couldn't come back and revisit this context, could you really?
Well, what it was with the first one covered the period from like 1978, the birth of home video, up until like 1985, the passing of the Video Recordings Act, and that was that kind of time slice. So with this one, this continues the story from 1985 to 1999. So it's a direct continuation. So in some ways, this documentary and the last one if you edited them together, it's like one mega documentary. So it's continuous, and it's more of the history that happened at that period, in that sad period in British film
When
history.
the BBFC took over the classification of video, so following the Video Recordings Act, it was obviously quite strict, and they had to be really careful what they let through because of the tabloid media. So they were really heavily cutting videos, particularly horror videos. So a black market developed, and it drove it underground.
Because of the draconian measures that the people will see here tonight.
Well, I think the interesting sort of theme that goes through the film is how much of this is really about protecting people, or how much is it really about controlling people? Is that something?
Protected the children argument, don't they? Which is just ridiculous. It's just absolutely.
Well, I think it definitely comes down to that, and to me, it's always more about control than it is about protection.
Doing it now
because
with the internet and the protection of children and age ratings on websites, it's still happening.
it's always the same story. You always get laws coming into place which are supposed to be there to protect, like, children, but how about the rights of adults? How about whatever adults want to see things? And with film, it's a very interesting thing where we've always had this control in this country about this. And I think most people agree with an age rating system, but the idea that stuff should be cut for adults, it always seems a bit ridiculous to me.
Well, it's interesting because one of the big topics of discussion was the fact that they were trying to, with the home video market, they were trying to protect the children that could potentially see this, wasn't it? The Jamie Bulger.
Obviously, think it's a Jamie Bulger case, but there's no evidence that the children ever saw it. But the judge, jumped on the bandwagon, and so did the tabloid media, and it just expanded from there. And then it was just like, video nasties back in the 80s, which were unclassified, suddenly swapped places to classified videos from major studios. So there was no real way of winning that war. It was just like the studios didn't seem to want to stand up and fight and defend their own movies. So it was up to horror fans to sort of take it into their own hands.
Is it interesting that the horror fans themselves, that this whole underground kind of movement started to happen? It was actually very cool to be able to have a pirate copy of something quite sinister.
Well, the irony of the underground horror scene, and in fact events like this, Fright Fest, all of these festivals that kicked off, and fanzines, it created a group of people that actually, you became criminalised for being a horror fan. Like, if you wanted to see uncut material, the only way to do that was to break the law, which is stupid when you look at it retrospectively. But it did create this brilliant energy of people that are still gathering today. So there was an upside to that. That the cultural kind of environment created this condition where people always, it kind of encouraged you to be a bit anti-authoritarian, which I think is a good thing.
That struck me watching the documentary as well was just the plethora of news footage and archive material that you've had to trawl through. I just what a mammoth task that must have been.
Luckily, I had a lot of it on VHS tape, so I knew what existed because it was in my head as well. I remember watching it the first time round, and I kept a lot of that stuff from back then. I had a lot of the news cuttings and fanzines and stuff, and I just knew that it was there. But we'd still find other versions that were better from other websites, from news agencies and stuff like that. And there's a lot of news archives out there that keep this stuff, and you just go through it all and find what you need.
But what's really interesting when people watch Draconian Days is that obviously, depending on the age of the viewer, their terms of reference on what happened. So it's really interesting because often people all of a sudden remember something they saw on the news, or they remember that Sun headline, "For the sake of all our kids, burn your video nasty." And some of these things were so extreme, and you forget how bizarre the world was back then. And during this documentary, like I say, it really sort of shows how old you were depending on your reference. Like, some people only remember the Chucky stuff with Charles
the Michael Ryan, Rambo,
the
massacre
Rambo thing.
stuff.
So it's really interesting. So that everyone's point of reference is slightly different.
I mean, back in those days, I was a collector myself, and I'd be swapping tapes and selling tapes and stuff like that. And you'd get a phone call one night saying, "Oh, they're doing raids tomorrow morning." So you'd be
Hiding it
shitting,
under the
you'd
bed
be
and under the
scared.
bath.
You'd be like, "Why can I hide all my stuff? What do I take out?" It's all like video nasties. You have to take it around your girlfriend's house. I used to hide them under the bath, under the kitchen sink at the back, secret holes here and there.
But see, the thing is,
They
but the thing is
would.
that, but you're laughing. But the thing is, it sounds comedic and sounds silly. But David Flint over there, the guy you're going to interview in a minute, he was arrested and basically for only these videos. So this is the thing. The fact is, the police would come around to they would bust you, come around to your house, seize all your videos, your video recorders, take everything away. That sounds like you're living in a police state to me, and that happened to people. And this is the serious side of this, Like I say, there's a great fun side to it, but then the reality was people were getting arrested and bust for owning horror videos, which is absurd.
Was like teenagers, just collecting horror films and trying to make a buck on the side, swapping them with their mates and stuff. And then, they wake up one morning and the ball will be kicked in and they'd have all their horror tapes and their video recorders taken away as well, like their decks.
Exactly. So there's some amazing footage of that in the film, in fact, which reminds you how scary those times were. And like I say, now we're away from them, it seems much more amusing. But when you were there, was actually quite a scary thing.
And with regards to making both of the DVDs, what have you taken away with making this film? Documentary.
Oh, it's just nice to refresh people's memories that it could happen again. Basically, it's still happening now. It's creeping up on sort of censorship of the internet and stuff. It's just broadening people's horizons so they realise it could happen again.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah, it's definitely important that people look back to the past to see what happened. Yeah, to see how things were controlled, and it's so. But now we've got the internet, and the horror fan has a voice now. We can get on social media and discuss these issues. It's harder for the powers that be to get away with it in a way that they did then. Unless you had the ear of the media, then you didn't have a voice back then. So I think that's changed, and it's good that this serves a purpose to introduce people to what happened, and hopefully we'll be more vigilant in the future.
People out there who didn't live through it can watch it and obviously learn a lot of what happened. It still happens when we take it abroad. They just can't believe it really happened in this country. It's just amazed, aren't they?